Today, we're jumping into a really powerful idea from Mehmet Yildiz that tackles a paradox so many of us feel. Why, when we have access to so much, do we often feel so empty?
This quote just hits you, right? It perfectly captures this really modern problem. The feeling of having access to everything, trying everything, and instead of feeling full, you just feel nothing. Completely spent.
So here's how we're going to break this down. We're going to go on a little 5-part journey. We'll start by really looking at this feeling of emptiness, and then move all the way to a path that might lead to some real, lasting fulfillment. So let's get into it.
So, what is this burnout, really? Well, the source material calls it Tukin-Mischlik syndrome, and it's not just about being tired from work. It's this specific state you get to after you've chased down every worldly pleasure you can think of, and instead of feeling satisfied, you're just left with this deep, hollow feeling.
And the diagnosis here is, well, it's pretty blunt. The idea is that all those things we're told to chase, the fancy cars, the exotic trips, the status symbols, they're dismissed with this fantastic Turkish phrase, kushiyemi. It literally means bird feed. And the point is, it's just a distraction. It can't give you the real nourishment your spirit is actually crying out for.
Okay, so what's the real issue here? According to this way of thinking, the problem is actually pretty simple. We're just feeding the wrong part of ourselves.
And this is where it gets super interesting. This slide lays it all out, doesn't it? We've got two columns here. On one side, you have the body, the Justin. And let's be honest, we are experts at feeding it, giving it food, comfort, all sorts of physical experiences. But then there's the other side, the soul, the ruh, and it's hungry for totally different things. Meaning, purpose, connection, and that's the hunger we so often ignore.
And to really make this stick, the source gives us a couple of killer analogies. First, think about a rider and their horse. Your body is the horse. Now, does feeding the horse make you, the rider, feel full? No way. Or here's another one. Imagine you have 2 kids, but for some reason, you only ever feed one of them. What's going to happen? The other one is going to be screaming in hunger. Well, in this story, our soul is that starving child.
And this right here leads to the absolute key to this whole idea. Not all pleasures are the same. Not even close. The source splits them into 2 completely different categories. And understanding this difference is, well, it's everything.
So on one hand, you've got what are called sufli lezzetler, or base pleasures. Think of these as physical, temporary, the kind of stuff we actually share with the animal kingdom. But then, on the other hand, you have ulvi lezzetler, sublime pleasures. These are deep, they're meaningful, and they're uniquely human. They're what really feed the soul.
And wow, this slide just lays out the difference so clearly. The thrill of a Ferrari, that's a base pleasure. But that feeling of profound peace and humility in a moment of prayer, that's a sublime pleasure. One is totally external, the other is deeply internal. Think about it. The taste of some fancy meal versus the incredible, almost life-changing taste of a simple glass of water after a long fast. They're not even in the same league.
Okay, I get it. Sublime pleasures. Sounds amazing, right? But how do you get them? The source suggests it's not as simple as just picking one off a menu. It actually takes a kind of awakening. And the analogy for it is a seed finally breaking through the dirt and into the sun.
So just imagine a seed, okay? It's buried underground. Its entire world is just soil and minerals. And maybe it gets burned out on the taste of soil. It thinks it's experienced everything there is. But what it doesn't know is that there's this whole other universe of sunlight, rain, and open sky waiting right above it.
And that's why these sublime pleasures can seem kind of unappealing at first. If your soul's senses, your capacity for awe, for meaning, for connection, are dormant, you literally can't perceive what's being offered. It's like putting on an absolutely magnificent feast for someone who is fast asleep. They can't see it, they can't smell it, it means nothing to them. And this next part is, well, it's a gut punch. But it makes so much sense. When those deep needs of the soul are ignored, they don't just vanish. They ache. They cause pain. And what do we humans do when we feel pain? We try to numb it. The argument here is that so many of our distractions, our addictions, are really just attempts to silence the cries of a starving soul.
All right, so let's bring this all back to reality. How does this transformation actually play out in a person's life? The analogy used is just perfect. It's like moving from being stuck in a basement to finally living on the top floor.
And to show you this isn't just a nice theory, there's this incredible story of a former casino owner. I mean, this is a guy who lived at the absolute center of base pleasures. But after a near-death experience, he just walked away from it all.
He spent 10 months in total isolation, just studying and reflecting. And when he came back, his whole perspective had shifted. He said everything he used to chase, the thrill, the money, he realized it was all just bird feed compared to the real inner peace he'd found.
And that apartment analogy we mentioned? It just clicks, doesn't it? A life chasing only those base pleasures is like living in a damp, dark basement apartment with no windows. But a life that embraces those sublime pleasures, that's like moving up to a sun-drenched penthouse with a panoramic view. And once you've seen that view, why on earth would you ever want to go back to the basement?
But here's the kicker. The goal isn't just to get a weekend rental on the top floor. No way. The idea is to make it your permanent home. By choosing those sublime pleasures again and again, you eventually move all your luggage out of the basement for good, and that higher state becomes your new normal.
So that leaves us with one last question to really chew on. Think about it. We are so careful, so meticulous about what we feed our bodies every single day. We plan our meals, we shop for groceries. The question this whole idea leaves us with is, what's on the menu for the soul? What are we deliberately feeding it today?